Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX, and we have an SMWX veteran with us, Karyn Maughan, legal journalist at Tiso Blackstar and also on Newsroom Africa these days. And she interviewed me today, so I'm paying the favor back.
Yay.
Wow.
Expound. Well, I think what was fascinating today is that we've always had Jacob Zuma kind of hinting in dark ways about this conspiracy against him. You know, it first emerged in his in his bid to stop his corruption case, obviously now trying to get a permanent stay of prosecution. But he was saying in 2008 already that because he was a proponent of the rights of the poor, he had been targeted by the Mbeki administration and other dark forces. But for the first time today, he articulates his long-held belief since 1990s that he in fact has been the target of 2 foreign intelligence agencies and apartheid era intelligence structures.
When he said, let me start in 1990, I was like, wow, this is going to be something.
So he's now putting it out there that, you know, this is why all his issues with the law, whether it's in Nkandla, whether it's state capture inquiry, whether it's his corruption trial, all the allegations made against him, he believes the genesis of this is this desire to get rid of him, both politically and actually physically. I mean, we heard astounding kind of revelations about, you know, a suicide bomber, potential attempts to poison him. And some of them, while they may sound fantastic, there are elements which we know have been confirmed by the NPA, not least of all that there is in fact a docket against his former wife Maughan over his alleged poisoning.
And this was the first time where he really named names. He's often sort of suggested, but he spoke about current Minister Mbalula, he spoke about former Minister Ramatlhodi. He really didn't hold back from specifying people.
You see, the fascinating thing here is that we haven't had a profound degree of insight into just how deeply intelligence has influenced the leadership of Jacob Zuma. Now, when he gets questioned, for example, about the so-called fake intelligence report that he used as a basis to fire Pravin Gordhan, you know, it's going to be fascinating to hear from him whether he genuinely believed, as he put forward in those kind of alliance meetings, that the Gordhan and Jonas were attempting to commit economic treason against the country. We now have an insight into just how deeply he regards that intelligence information, that it really was a game changer for him, and that indeed he believed or suspected that 2 of his cabinet ministers, Pule Nyanda and Nwako Ramatlhodi, were in fact former apartheid era spies. You know, we get an insight into how deeply these divisions within the ANC ran, and the fact that they may actually be informed by kind of a genuinely held belief, though it's being denied by Ramatlhodi, and we expect, you know, similar responses from Nyanda, that, you know, these people that you're in the same organization with may in fact have attempted to betray you 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was fascinating, from the poisoning plots to the assassination plots and the naming of names. There was also a section where he spoke about communication with the Gupta family related to the media entities that they established. What did you make of those exchanges?
Well, you know, this is the thing, it's actually the first time that he's spoken about the Gupta media empire. And he's essentially said, that was my idea. I urged them to have a newspaper. I actually gave the newspaper its name because I believed and still believe that the media in this country is very negative, that it's not progressive, and this was part of my drive to ensure that there were progressive media organizations. And I in fact urged them to open ANN7. Now we heard, you know, the former ANN7 editor coming in here and giving these revelations about Zuma's involvement. He's openly declaring it, and it'll be interesting to see how the inquiry deals with that, because he's saying there was absolutely no wrongdoing in it. I just simply believed that this was a voice that we needed in the media space, obviously very heavily criticized, you know, labeled as a Gupta mouthpiece, but him saying that, you know, he regarded it as something that was necessary for democratic media functioning. Of course, that's going to be picked up by the inquiry tomorrow, and given the level of evidence he's given, I think that it's going to be one of the most sort of substantively interesting aspects that he addresses tomorrow.
Absolutely, and just on that, and to end, what are you looking forward to as this testimony, which is already quite revelatory, unfolds?
Well, I understand that that list of apartheid spies that he has about 10 names on it, and that he will want to try and drop those kind of names as he progresses. I think that, you know, for the first time, we see him in a space where he essentially has nothing to lose. So he is going to go out there, guns blazing, and he's going to go after everyone. And of course, you know, already little hints appearing on Twitter as to who we think will be next on his list of names. You know, obviously vehement denials coming from Mwako Ramatlhodi. He's dared the president, former president, he says he wants to take a lie detector test with him, etc., etc. But for me, it's going to be the minutiae of this relationship. He claims it was innocent. How did it influence, you know, potential decisions, and specifically the appointment of Des van Rooyen, which was such a kind of pivotal moment in our history.
Absolutely.
What informed his decision to remove Nhlanhla Nene? He said in an interview to me that he really believes we should have done a nuclear deal with Russia, that may well have formed part of his decision to remove Nene, but then to replace him for 4 days with Des van Rooyen and then appoint Pravin Gordhan. I want to hear his insight into that. I want to hear his insights into whether he believed that was the right thing to do, what made him make that decision, and whether he, you know, regrets it, firing Nene, or regrets firing Des, which I think may be one of the more interesting answers we hear tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, there's no one better to analyze it with, so thanks for sparing some time for SMWX.
Always.
Ayeye. Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX. I'm here with Mr. Pule Mabe, who's spokesperson for the ANC, who usually is giving me guests to speak to, but now I can finally speak to him.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Budi, for coming on to SMWX.
Yes.
Now, should what has been said be true, what do you think the implications are for the ANC?
Well, Sizwe, of course, what we said that we're not going to be making running commentary on this.
Sure.
If the administrators of justice, having looked at all the issues, whether it's what is said today or what is said in the past, and then they come to a certain determination, the expectation is that those who are law-abiding and have shown by way of coming before the commission that they respect the work that this commission is expected to fulfill, that they shall also respect the outcomes and findings of the commission, including whatever measures that the commission shall have proposed or imposed as judgments in this instance.
In some ways, I mean, this speaks to a country where there's transparency, where an entire president can come before the nation and try to explain himself.
Yes.
On the other hand, you know, there are serious implications about what the president has said. How do you see it in terms of the ANC? Not just President Zuma's testimony, but what it means more broadly for the Commission and what it represents to South Africa.
Well, I like the line you made at first on transparency. The fact that the cadreship of the African National Congress has heeded the call we have made, that those of our members and individual leaders, when they are invited here, they should come. Now, we are an exemplary movement. We are leading by example. Former President Jacob Zuma, who's not just the former president of the ANC, he's the former president of the apex body called the Republic of South Africa.
Sure.
You know, so now he's the former president of the state. He's coming in, sharing information to the best of his own knowledge and to the best of his own understanding. Now, the onus is on those who administrate law and order to look at all of this information, make a determination on what should be done. Our expectation is that out of all of this, we should have corrective measures. We must all be able to construct a country that your own generation, the young people of your age, could be able to call home. We must be able to say we are doing everything else in our power to build the South Africa we want. Now, we must start that by reflecting on the blight, the things that we believe were not necessary to allow us to move forward. Remove from state institutions corruption where it raised its ugly head. Exposed conduct which was not in sync with the building of a capable and developmental state.
Now this first part of this testimony happens on a Monday, which is always a very busy day for the ANC.
Yes.
You often have important meetings,
Yes.
National Working
Yes,
Committee
we do have
meetings.
actually today.
Oh, okay, great.
Yes.
Do you think any of these statements or any of the implications from former President Zuma's testimony will feed into those meetings, or are you just...
Well, the African National Congress wouldn't veer into that space in that way, because that will also be making a running commentary.
Sure.
These are developments. We are observing them.
Yeah.
People have said things about and against each other. The work continues.
Yeah.
You know, so we are expecting that everyone who comes here says things to the best of their own knowledge and understanding, share their own historic context or narrative, so that they empower the administrators of law and order to apply themselves to all the facts. I mean, if you are in court and you are a magistrate, very often you preside on matters that happened in your absence, and you are going to use facts presented to make a construct of what could be the outcomes here, befitting whatever evidence that shall have been presented. People are taking a stand. Our former president is taking a stand.
Yeah.
If the ANC is required to come, at that point the organization shall come forward and will be able to speak on its own behalf.
So as the ANC, you might even make...
Well, we are watching these developments.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
you know, in the past, the national chair was here.
Absolutely.
You know, so what South Africans should take solace on is the fact that the leadership of the ANC is available.
Absolutely.
We ourselves are here.
And President Ramaphosa, do you think we'll see him sometime soon?
I can tell you now that whether it's President Ramaphosa or any other person who's invited here,
Sure.
We are a law-abiding organization. We respect the law. We have set up these apex institutions to be able to build and restore the moral standing of this nation called South Africa.
Well, thanks so much for joining us on SMWX.
No thanks.
Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX, and I'm here with Natasha Mazzoni, who is DA MP. So glad to be with you, Natasha. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And this is about President Zuma, but it's about a much larger story in which President Zuma happens to be implicated. Take us through your thoughts on how this is actually bigger than President Zuma right now.
So I think for a long time we viewed this Zondo Commission as being the Zondo Commission into Zuma and his presidency and how he stole the country. And I think what we need to fundamentally understand as a nation is that one person alone cannot steal an entire country. It takes a grouping of people. State capture was a plan that was so genius in its construction, so precisely executed, but so diabolic in its intention that it required many willing participants to take part in this mad feeding frenzy. And what you're seeing today is, as Jacob Zuma name drops people and bombs them under the bus, so you're seeing that he was simply one of the pawns and was an easy catalyst for those who were willing buyers to come in and find willing sellers in the greater scheme of South African politics. And we've said for a long time that yes, 9 years is when of Jacob Zuma's reign as president was when state capture reached its zenith. But state capture's much bigger than Jacob Zuma. You're hearing it today. He was a pawn that was used and he allowed many things to happen. But in actual fact, the entire ANC government should be testifying at the Zondo Commission as to how they let their fellow, and I quote, comrades, introduce one another to these influential families, how they allowed comrades to know secrets about each other and not go and tell officials. Because what Jacob Zuma is implying today is that one of the reasons he amassed the power that he did inside the ANC and why they tried to kill him was because he knew secrets about comrades that he shouldn't have known. Well, certainly then you go and report that to officials of the country.
Were there any particular revelations from your perspective in the DA that were particularly incriminating or surprising that stood out to you?
Well, I think the self-incrimination of Jacob Zuma saying that he knew and he knows things about comrades that serve alongside him was quite a revelation, in that he, the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act says that if you know about a crime or an intention to commit a crime, you have an obligation to go and report that, otherwise you are complicit in that crime. So I think by throwing people under the bus in the manner that he did, he self-implicated himself because he has admitted to knowing about impending crimes or crimes that have taken place and he did not report them. But I think that in cross-examination, and once he doesn't have this free flow of uninterrupted speech, it's going to be a lot more difficult to just backtrack all the time, and he's going to have to remember the story you told us this morning to make sure that it matches the story he tells us this afternoon.
And I'm interested in your decision to come here. You're one of few, in fact the only opposition politician I've seen at the commission. What was your thinking behind actually being in the room to hear this testimony?
Well, I have fought state capture for many years. It's something that's become very close to me. I'm the DA's spokesperson on state capture. I stood in the, and I still stand in the Public Enterprises Committee. I have lodged 37 criminal charges against people for state capture. So having Jacob Zuma appear today is almost watching the snake eventually eat itself when it comes to state capture. So I thought it was fundamentally important for me to be here today so that I could hear firsthand what he was saying. And also you have a completely different feel because you also see who's in the room and the reactions of the people that are in the room to what's being said at the podium.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. Always good to see a Napoli fan after Liverpool beat Napoli in the Champions League. So
rub it in. It's okay. This is what a politician has a thick skin for.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the content. Like, share and subscribe on all platforms. smwx.co.za to join the WhatsApp channel. And let's build a new conversation for a new generation. Ayeye.